Ryan Tippett will be talking to us about Pyxicephalus adspersus, the giant bullfrog. This is a fascinating species, and Ryan is speaking to us from the Northern Cape region of South Africa, a semi-arid to arid region, and one of those areas where after good rainfall, water might collect in pans or pools, and I'm sure he'll tell us about the situation with giant bullfrogs in his part of the world. But it's quite a sight to see these giant bullfrogs suddenly appearing after good periods of rainfall. But I'm going to leave Ryan to tell you all about these fascinating amphibians. Ryan, thank you very much for being with us, and we look forward to your presentation.
All right, great. Okay, well, welcome everyone, and yeah, let's move straight along. I'm going to be talking to you obviously about the giant bullfrog. There's nothing groundbreaking here. It's just really a nice, hopefully it's nice presentation on a well-known species. It's quite well studied. So at the end of the day, the whole purpose of this is to just have something put out there that's informative and interesting. Perhaps somebody will learn a few things that they didn't know before. So I'm trying to... Okay, so just a quick outline of what I'm going to speak about. I will do a quick introduction, and then we'll go through identification, similar species, habitat, distribution, a bit about the life history, including their adaptations, reproduction, etc. And then we'll have a look at the conservation and threats. So first up, Pyxicephalus adspersus is the largest amphibian in southern Africa, and it is in fact the second largest frog species in the world. The largest is the Goliath frog, of course, from central West Africa, which is around double the size of the African giant bullfrog, but yeah, they look fairly similar. So let's take a brief look at this, the life of this. It is ultimately a very charismatic, adaptable, and successful species. Okay, so first up, how to identify these guys. Fairly easy based on their size. If you see a nice adult, the length up to 245 millimeters and a weight of up to 1.4 kilograms. So a very sizable beast. The largest specimens in southern Africa come from Gauteng. Interestingly, they seldom exceed 14 centimeters in the other provinces. Not sure why that is. And unusually for frogs, males are larger than females. The head is noticeably broad with a rounded snout. And you may just be able to pick it out in this photograph. There's a, see just here, at the lower jaw, you can see the two large tooth-like and bony protrusions that project upwards. They are used in fighting as well as to grasp onto their slippery prey, which could range from, you know, other frogs to snakes, insects, and various things. We'll have a look at that just now. So there are several conspicuous skin ridges present on the back. As you can see, that they don't run all the way down. They're in sort of broken sections down the back. You can see the skin folds more clearly in this first photograph. They have spade-like inner metatarsal tubercles on the feet, which we can't really see on these images, but they are used for digging. And in adults, the back is mostly dark olive green, as you can see on the left-hand side. And the undersides are generally white to creamy yellow, except in the forelimb region, where the males are bright yellow, breeding males. And they also come in a variety of other color forms, which are less common, ranging from brown to gray and even somewhat bluish. Some sections of the skin folds may be whitish, the protruding skin folds. Not on that individual though. Juveniles usually have a pale vertebral stripe, as you can see on this one on the right-hand side. And dark mottling may be present on the throat of males. All right, so those are the most obvious identification features in terms of their appearance, and they are frequently confused with this similar species, which is its closest relative, Pyxicephalus edulus, the African bullfrog, which is also known sometimes as the edible bullfrog, although both species are eaten by people. The African bullfrog is a smaller species, reaching up to around 12 centimeters in length. So at full size is quite a lot smaller than the giant bullfrog, but still bigger than the rest of the frog species and toads. The two are easy to distinguish from one another in the field based on differences on their calls and reproductive behavior. However, identifying them on visual features alone is proving to be quite tricky, especially in areas in parts of Limpopo where both species could possibly co-occur. Many of the attributes or the physical characteristics that were previously thought to be good for identification have now been proven to not be so reliable. And only large individuals in areas of overlap over and beyond the 120 millimeters are safely identified as the giant bullfrog, as they do actually have a lot of very similar features. Smaller individuals cannot be distinguished easily from adspersus and edulus. Okay, so habitat. The giant bullfrog inhabits a variety of vegetation types. They seem to be most abundant in grassland, the grassland biome. You also find them in parts of the savanna biome, most notably the Kalahari and some of the more dry inland savanna regions, and the Namakuru and thicket biomes. I'm presently living in the Namakuru, and they do occur out here, but they are quite sparsely distributed. It's a vast dry area, so suitable habitat is few and far between. But nevertheless, they are here. They prefer mid to high altitude regions, and they do occur up to and above 1,500 meters above sea level in some regions. They always breed in seasonal, shallow pans, rain depressions, flays and marshes and so on, particularly areas that are grassy and typically in open countryside. They also make use of non-permanent wetlands associated with waterholes and dams, so adjoining man-made habitats. This photograph is a dam on the farm where I stay, and it's hardly ever got water. And this previous summer, we had sort of in the middle of summer, we had a good couple of downpours, and it filled up for the first time in years. And the giant bullfrogs made an appearance. So they also typically prefer sandy substrates over clay soils. This is no doubt because it's much easier to excavate burrows in sandy soil. All right, and then distribution. So here's this map I've taken from the frog map on the virtual museum, and you can see the the extent of the distribution of the species. The yellow squares are historical records, and the blue-green circles are virtual museum records collected over the last several years. And so yeah, these two little marks over here, around about there is where I stay. And yeah, as you can see, I think it's just also because of a lack of coverage, but there's far fewer records out here. And the highland, high-veld grassland areas is where the majority of records come from. They're found in almost all provinces. They just get into the extreme northern parts of the Western Cape, quite widespread throughout the Northern Cape, but avoiding the sort of drier, succulent Karoo wetland, I mean, what I'm talking about, winter rainfall parts of the Karoo. And they're found in the interior of the Eastern Cape, the interior of KwaZulu-Natal, throughout the Free State, parts of Mpumalanga, especially the areas adjoining Gauteng and into Limpopo. They avoid the lower lying and subtropical coastal regions. This record here in northern KwaZulu-Natal is dubious, I believe, quite likely to be from Pyxicephalus edulis, the African bullfrog. Okay, so as I say, widely distributed, and beyond South Africa, it extends into central Namibia, throughout Botswana, much of Zimbabwe, and continues up into Angola, as well as, I think it goes up as far north as Kenya. So adult giant bullfrogs are fossorial, meaning that they are terrestrial and adapted to burrowing. They are one of the most adaptable amphibian species. They are well adapted to dealing with extreme conditions, extreme heat in summer, bitter cold throughout the winter, and extended drought periods. And so in summer, in their habitats, this area here is also on the farm where I stay, and that's normally well, not normally, very seldom, but when we get very good rains, this turns into a wetland. And when it dries up, the surface temperatures are extremely hot, and it bakes rock hard. And in the winter months, we regularly into the -5 to 7 range. And so yeah, the conditions are very harsh, and this species is perfectly adapted to dealing with it. So they protect themselves in an underground estivation chamber, where they wait until better conditions arrive. Inside this chamber, they shut down their metabolism essentially, and their heartbeat slows, everything slows down, and they can stay in this state of torpor or estivation for extended periods. So it's famed for its ability to endure these prolonged drought conditions. Interestingly, where I've been living on the farm here for 3 years now, and this wetland area is right near the house, and it's had water in it periodically, but there were never any bullfrogs. And this past summer, we had one really good downpour, and the next morning it was full of bullfrogs. Where they came from, I mean, they must have come from underground, but my father-in-law was absolutely shocked. He's been farming here for most of his life, and he said he never knew there were giant bullfrogs there. So it's quite amazing that they can stay undetected and hidden, and yeah, just amazing that they just appear. It was quite a shock. There's another little wetland on the farm. This one is a few kilometers away from the previous one that filled up with a bit of rain. So these bullfrogs emerge from their burrows only after heavy rains during the breeding season. So I believe downpours of at least 30 millimeters before they will emerge. So constant drizzle and that sort of thing does not prompt them to emerge at all. After these downpours, they congregate in large numbers at breeding sites. And the burrows are about half a meter to a meter deep, depending on the soil type. They burrow deeper in sandy soil than in clay soil. So inside this estivation chamber, they have shed several layers of skin that forms essentially a cocoon where they will hide away through these extended dry periods. And then once it rains and they start emerging, they are explosive breeders, and they find a mate and lay eggs. The whole process starts within 24 hours, 48 hours, I should say. Spawning usually happens in the morning after heavy rain, so they are a diurnal species. And this is when we noticed them on the farm. We heard this very deep call that they make early in the morning. So adult males show 3 size-related mating strategies. This is quite interesting, I found. You get territorial males, non-territorial males, and satellite behavior, which we'll have a quick look at now. So territorial males are the largest individuals, and these are site faithful. So they have a little territory that they mark out, or they fight for, and they protect. So they fiercely defend this against intruding males. The non-territorial males are sort of the medium-sized ones. They gather in what's known as a lek, sort of a communal area where they all gather and call and fight to get the best positions. And yeah, their fighting sort of takes on, looks more like wrestling than anything else. Lots of grappling and throwing and biting and so on. Some of these bouts of fighting has been recorded to last for more than 40 minutes. And these males often get quite injured, and you can find them with some quite nasty scars, eyes missing and so on, and they may even die from their injuries. So females, understandably, maintain a low profile as they approach this arena or lek, often just with their eyes protruding from the water. So the moment a female is noticed, she's then grabbed by the closest male, and he will attempt to mate with her. So the act of the mating clasp in frogs is known as amplexus, but amplexus displacement is common. So when the first male grabs a female, there's often other males that come and they try to rip them off to sort of separate them from the female so that they may get a chance instead. So it's a huge competition, and I think many males are left frustrated during this whole process. And then finally, the smaller males, these males are unable to defend a territory, and they're unable to fight amongst the other males in the lek or the arena. So what they do is something altogether more sneaky, and this is known as satellite behavior. And these males stay in close proximity to the big territorial males, just quietly minding their own business, not getting involved, so they don't sort of get aggravate the big guy. And in this way, they're sort of tolerated nearby, and they try to intercept females that are attracted to these big males. So it's quite sneaky, and it's called satellite behavior. So amplexus, the mating, the spawning is what it is really. It takes place in water, shallow water, and during spawning, the male pushes the female's head underwater. So she raises her cloaca out of the water, and therefore the eggs are fertilized before entering the water. Okay, so there you can see the larger male, which is quite unusual. If you look at any pictures of mating frogs, you typically will see the male on the back of the female is significantly smaller. And as mentioned, the reverse is true with this species. So yeah, reproduction. So a spent female, she's done spawning. She triggers the male to release her by shaking her head from side to side, and then she slips off into the deeper water. But by the time she's done, she can lay up to 4,000 eggs during that mating period. The small black tadpoles emerge from the eggs after just 36 hours. So it's a species that's really adapted to temporary water bodies, and so this has to happen, this whole process has to happen very, very rapidly before the water dries up. So newly emerged tadpoles then gather in schools, and as the schools grow and the tadpoles grow, these schools start to combine until eventually within the pond you will get one large single school of tadpoles. And they're all of similar size because everything happened at once. So this is a good thing because they are, as you'll see just now, they may also be cannibalistic as they grow older. And they tend to congregate in the shallower, warmer water where they can find enough algae and other food. And this species can complete its metamorphosis in 18 to 33 days, which is quite amazing. And yeah, it needs to happen because the water, once it's rained and the hot sun comes out, that water can disappear very quickly. So the male giant bullfrog is interesting because he demonstrates a degree of parental care, and he will actively defend his offspring for the duration of the larval development. And he may try to chase off intruders by acting very aggressively with his mouth open, showing those two protrusions on the lower jaw, puffing himself up and just trying to look intimidating. If a school of tadpoles becomes isolated from the main body of water, these males are actually known, and you can actually find videos and documentaries that show it, where the male actually digs little channels to allow water to flow through and to allow the tadpoles to escape these drying pools and to get into the main body of water, which is fantastic. And then the channels can range from 3 meters, but have been recorded over 18 meters long, which is quite an amazing achievement and awareness for this male that he knows that he needs to do this. It's quite incredible. All right, food and feeding. As you can see there, they are voracious predators. They feed on virtually anything that they can fit in their mouth and that can be swallowed. Just remember, frogs are not able to chew food or to break it up in any way, so it needs to be swallowed whole. And so, yeah, anything that fits in the mouth. So the most common food items are probably things like insects and crabs, things that they find around the edge of the water, but they are recorded feeding on, as you can see there, rodents and various reptiles and all sorts of things. So it's also been reported that they eat baby snakes. Like in this case, they were reported to eat at least 17 newly born rinkels, which are, as we know, quite a venomous snake species. And they've also been observed attacking drinking birds, such as laughing doves coming to the water. So yeah, all they want to do is eat. I think that's just all that goes through their mind, over and above the mating, of course. So adult, juvenile, and tadpole stages are all known to be cannibalistic. And yeah, it's so dog eat dog or frog eat frog. And yeah, nothing is safe. Nothing is safe that's not big enough to get away. Let's put it that way. Yeah, they have a wide range of predators. Birds are the major predators of bullfrogs. Recorded bird predators include marsh harrier, fish eagles, marsh owl, saddle-billed storks, pelicans, herons, egrets, etc. Tadpoles are also preyed upon by terrapins, water monitor, marsh mongoose, wrinkles. So there's a payback for the snake, as well as fish that feed on tadpoles, such as and particularly the sharp-toothed catfish and barbel. And then just some information on their conservation. It's been reported since the 1980s that the giant bullfrog numbers were declining in Gauteng, Northwest, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga in particular. And they have been declared extinct as recently as 2001 in Eswatini, Swaziland, unfortunately. It's estimated that habitat and population sizes have declined by more than 50% over the past 100 years. The decline is most marked in areas under extensive crop agriculture and/or urban and industrial development. So the region around Gauteng, as you can imagine, is key in this whole thing. I think they've lost a lot of habitat in that region. So in terms of its global distribution, Pyxicephalus adspersus is considered of least concern on the IUCN Red List, but locally, in South Africa, it is regarded as near threatened due to most of its habitat being up on the high veld, which is largely under agriculture. The species does occur in a number of protected areas in South Africa, most notably the Karoo, Kalahari, Gemsbok, Mokala, and Pilanesberg National Parks, and there are others too, as well as a range of smaller nature reserves as well, and both private and government, as well as farms, such as out here in the Karoo, where I think the frogs are quite safe. Barring drought conditions and so on, there's no other real impacts to affect the species out here. And yeah, some threats. Habitat loss due to crop agriculture, as I've mentioned, are probably the major concern for the species. Adults and juveniles are often killed on roads, sometimes in large numbers, especially where these roads adjoin wetlands. The use of insecticides and herbicides may have a negative impact, but this does require further investigation. The illegal collection of adults and juveniles for the local international pet trade is of concern. And they also form part of the traditional diet of people living in certain parts of Limpopo in particular, where the species is commercially exploited, as you can see in the photo. And large numbers of frogs are indiscriminately and illegally collected at breeding sites and sold at butcheries. All right, thank you.
Oh, fantastic, Ryan. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Just a short and sweet information.
Brilliant. Fascinating to learn about an amphibian that is so well adapted to to capitalize on favorable conditions. Your comment about your dad saying that he'd never seen bullfrog, your father-in-law saying he'd never seen the giant bullfrogs. I'm not sure where they came from. We had a similar thing in the Karoo when we were there for the Bash, where it rained, not long before we arrived, and this is down at New Home, Karoo Garib, and there was one small dam that has had water in it in the past, but it filled up quite quickly, and the owner there, PC Ferreira, also commented that he's lived on the farm for about 28 years, and this was the first time that he'd seen giant bullfrogs there as well. So fascinating adaptation by this species to adapt to maximize the opportunities when good conditions arise. So thanks so much for that. I just wanted to go through and see there were a number of comments, and just want to have a quick look at the questions. Yeah, there was one question, Jonathan, I think, asked whether they occur in suburban habitats.
I believe so, yes, in the fringes of Gauteng, and they do still occur in some areas there, quite close to the city. But obviously, as the city grows and you know, urbanization and so on happens, the habitats there are definitely under threat. But I think that the surrounds of Gauteng are still the sort of quite well populated with these frogs. So yeah, especially as you move obviously further away from the city.
Petra Akita says, I guess the species gave rise to the Igbo saying, if you have to eat a frog, then you must eat a big one. So that's interesting. Dave Whitelaw asks, you mentioned that tadpoles were cannibalistic. Can you give us a bit more information about this, Ryan?
Well, I don't think it's when they're really little tadpoles. It's more when they start becoming froglets and so on. I think that's when their metabolism changes and they start moving from herbivores, as little tadpoles typically are, to becoming young adult frogs or froglets, or what do you call juveniles. They start they have that whole change of metamorphosis and they start becoming predatory. And around that stage, any frog or tadpole smaller than itself that fits in the mouth and can be swallowed will be eaten. Yeah, literally, they're indiscriminate. They will just eat anything that fits.
And it can be quite a noisy, chaotic situation when this is happening. I've experienced that before, and hearing the cannibalism going on is actually not for the faint-hearted. Yeah, there's I just want to see, there was something, Jonathan Neumann had a question whether you have any brachiopoda, tadpole shrimps or fairy shrimps in these temporary water bodies where you find the bullfrogs.
I haven't found any or noticed any here. I have seen them in KwaZulu-Natal, but I haven't seen anything here. I doubt on the farm where we are, our wetlands here tend to be, when they do get rain, they tend to be quite salty, brackish, and it's possible. I'm no expert on those things, but I haven't seen any here. No.
I know that we do get a number of different species of fairy shrimps in temporary pools. I know that there are certain areas with inselbergs in the Free State where I live, and sometimes on the tops of these inselbergs you get pools forming in rocks, and the eggs of these brachiopoda get brought in with the wind, perhaps, or on birds' feet. And I remember seeing small fairy shrimps up in fairly isolated temporary pools up on the tops of these inselbergs a number of years ago. I know they do occur, as you mentioned, Ryan, up in Zululand, in the mud wallows that you find in the reserves, in those, and in some of those water bodies as well.
I won't be surprised if they are here. I won't be surprised at all.
Right. Any other questions that anybody might have? Jonathan, yes. Go ahead.
Not from me, but from Abu Kaba. Is the species so precious to be lost? What are the conservation measures in place to save the species at local level?
Well, I'm not entirely sure throughout, but the good news is that they are protected in many reserves. So but I can't answer what goes on in sort of on a municipal basis or things like that. I don't know. But the good news is they do exist in many of the conservation areas. So I don't know if there's anybody else that would be able to answer that in more detail. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you
Ryan.
for that, Ryan, because you already made mention in your presentation that it has become extinct in some parts of Southern Africa. So the fear is that maybe as this threat continue to increase, the species can become completely extinct.
Yes, well, the species is considered to be on the decrease, so that pattern is persisting, but yeah, it's I think unfortunately just the way it is sometimes with species that live close to or in areas that are prime human habitats too. So I think that's everything ends up losing out to humans eventually, and so yeah, it's a difficult one.
Yeah, thank goodness
Yeah, sure.
they thank goodness they do occur in many conservation areas. So I think that
Yes,
that
sure.
could be
That's the good news.
yeah. But thanks for the question, Ringham.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you, Ryan.
Something I wanted to just add that you know, when I was researching a bit about this, most of the things we're talking about, how the frogs would sort of stay underground or be able to stay underground for literally months at a time, but it seems like from speaking to people that it seems to be that they can stay underground for significantly longer than that, perhaps years. And I couldn't find anything definitive about exactly how long they're able to stay in their estivation chambers for, but I think it would be very interesting to really find out from somebody what is the total length that they're capable of staying underground for. I think that could be fascinating. I suspect it's years.
It's even more surprising that they don't need to refill, so they do estuate, and just after the rain they can lay eggs, so they don't need to refill. So, and they only have a short time to refill after laying eggs because it's so dry so quick. It must be everything very quick with them.
Yes, everything happens very quickly.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Ryan.